The introduction of duck boats into military combat in the 1920s was a game changer, an amphibious vehicle with the ability to maneuver both on land and at sea. A car so revolutionary that some historians believe that it helped the Allies secure victory in World War II. But almost 60 years later, and modified for tourists, they have become known as death traps following the deaths of nearly 40 people in recent years. On July 19, 2018, a duck boat carrying 31 people capsized on Table Rock Lake in near hurricane conditions. 17 people died when the duck boat sank due to an incoming storm. The 70-minute excursion usually starts on land with a tour of Branson's tourist sites, but survivor Tia says the tour operator indicated they would do the lake part of the tour first as stormy weather was predicted. Less than 30 minutes later, the amphibious vehicle would sink to the bottom of the lake. According to survivors, Captain Scott McKee pointed out the location of the life jackets but maintained that the passengers would not need them. Neither federal nor Missouri law requires passengers to wear life jackets on commercial vessels. But soon after, as the duck boat started its water excursion, the storm struck, with 70-mile-per-hour winds creating swells between 3 to 5 feet high. Coleman was sitting near the front of the duck boat and said she didn't immediately suspect danger when the vessel started bobbing up and down in the turbulent waters. She says the passengers were told to remain seated when the heavy waves started bashing the boat. She only started panicking when a huge wave crashed across the bow and water started gushing in. Coleman then crashed into something hard as the boat began taking on water. Soon she lost sight of everyone when the water surrounded her. The last thing she heard before the boat went down was the desperate plea of her sister-in-law to grab the baby. Coleman and her 13-year-old nephew Donovan were the only two family members out of the 11 to survive. Her husband, 3 children, mother and father-in-law, her nephew, sister-in-law, and uncle all went down with the boat. At the same time, 14-year-old Lauren Smith was on the duck boat with her 53-year-old father Sam and her 15-year-old brother Lance. The family from Arkansas was on their annual holiday in Branson and wanted to experience a duck boat ride. Her mother Pam, however, stayed on land. Lauren says the weather looked good and the water seemed calm before they set off on the duck boat. But shortly after leaving land, the weather worsened as heavy swells started battering the boat. Her mother, Pam, said her husband called her just before the boat sank, saying the situation didn't look good and that he loved her. She would never see her husband or son alive again. Another survivor, 12-year-old Alicia Dennison from Illinois, says her grandmother Leslie Dennison died while trying to save her. She felt Leslie pushing her upward from below toward the surface as the boat sank. 15-year-old Jillian Collins was on the boat with her family and said the windows were sealed and passengers were briefly stuck under the ship's canopy as the boat went down. The captain reportedly managed to release the canopy, allowing them to swim to the surface. According to her father, Shane, it took all his strength to swim to the surface as the sinking boat was sucking people downward. Miraculously, the entire Collins family of 9 managed to survive the ordeal. Eyewitness Braden Molaski was on the showboat Branson Bell when they spotted the duck boat. He was filming on deck and captured the last moments before the boat sank. His short video shows how the wind gusts were causing waves to crash over the boat, with water only inches from the windows. The footage ends seconds before the boat reportedly capsized. Eyewitnesses said the passengers spilled out of the vessel as the ship went down. The Branson Bell's captain threw around 60 life jackets into the water, hoping that the scattered duck boat passengers could stay afloat until they could be reached. Tragically, 17 people lost their lives that evening when the boat sank, a mere 250 feet from the dock. The owners of the duck boat company, Ripley Entertainment, said they had never had a single accident in over 40 years of operation. Company president Jim Pattison Jr. blamed the sudden onset of the storm for the tragedy, but the National Weather Service issued a severe thunderstorm watch, warning of wind speeds in excess of 70 miles per hour at about 20 past 11 that morning, nearly 8 hours before the boat sank. As the storm made its way to Branson, The Weather Services issued a second severe thunderstorm warning around 6:30 p.m., just half an hour before the boat went down in Table Rock Lake. Survivor accounts also contradict the notion that the storm came out of nowhere, as the captain told them before they set off for the water tour that a storm was expected. 5 days after the boat went down, salvage operations brought the wreck to the surface for further investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board, better known as the NTSB. It would take another 2 years for the NTSB to release the report on their findings. It found that the probable cause of the accident was due to Ride the Ducks Branson's continued operation of water tours despite warnings of severe thunderstorms. It also faulted the Coast Guard for not implementing reserve buoyancy in amphibious vehicles. That's basically the surface of the ship's area above the waterplane that can be water sealed to increase the vessel's buoyancy. Additionally, the Coast Guard was blamed for not taking action against vehicles with a fixed canopy that hampered passengers' escape. The NTSB said the failure to implement 22 recommendations made after a 1999 duck boat accident that killed 13 people in Arkansas contributed significantly to the accident. It found that only 9 out of the 22 recommendations were adhered to, and that design flaws, like insufficient freeboard clearance between the deck and the waterline, as well as the mounted canopies overhead, remained a hazard for the operation of tourist duck boats. A video recorder and SD card were retrieved from the wrecked ship, which investigators would review to piece together events leading up to the sinking. The report showed that the captain concluded a safety briefing about 10 minutes before the wind gusts picked up, detailing the location of emergency exits and life jackets. Less than 3 minutes later, the captain is heard making a call over the radio, and seconds later, a bilge alarm goes off, which the captain apparently silenced. A second radio call can be heard where he relates that water was occasionally splashing into the passenger compartment before the audio cuts out. It's believed the vehicle was still on the water's surface at the time of that last call. The report stated that the flooding happened in a non-weathertight air intake hatch situated on the bow. The boat's captain, Kenneth Scott McKee, who survived, was charged with 17 counts of misconduct, inattention to duty by a ship's officer, and negligence. Each count represents a life lost in the accident. A year later, Ride the Ducks Branson's general manager and the manager on duty at the time were added to the charge sheet. The 3 were also charged with involuntary manslaughter. But in April 2022, the court dismissed all charges against the men. According to the Missouri judge, the unique characteristics of the duck boat led to its rapid sinking. It was also found that the employees used radar from a private meteorological company for weather reports. The radar reportedly only showed rain for that day, and no wind reports were indicated. Therefore, the staff knew about the storm, but did not know about the storm's dangerously strong winds. The NTSB found that the storm that hit Branson that fateful day was determined to be a derecho, a type of storm associated with widespread winds and thunderstorms capable of destruction, akin to a tornado. By January 2020, Ripley Entertainment, which also owns rights to Ripley's Believe It or Not, settled the last of the victims' lawsuits for a vast but undisclosed amount of money. Earlier reports, however, indicated that the victim settlement could be in the vicinity of $100 million. Andrew Duffy, whose law firm handled 2 duck boat-related litigations in Philadelphia, maintains duck boats are death traps because their design is not suitable for water or land, as it is half car and half boat. Interestingly enough, the designer of the Stretch Duck 7 was a self-taught entrepreneur without any formal engineering training. Designer Robert McDowell, the former owner of the Ride the Ducks company, testified in a deposition for a wrongful death lawsuit following a 2015 accident when a duck boat collided with a bus, killing 5 college students. McDowell taught himself how to build and maintain the duck boats, even though he had completed only 2 years of college and had no background in mechanics. Duck boat tours were suspended in Branson after the incident in 2018, but resumed in 2022. The new tour operators no longer use the old duck boat design and have introduced the Hydra Terra. The new amphibious tour bus is reportedly safer due to its foam-filled hull, which will prevent sinking. The Hydroterra still has a canopy, but no longer has the side curtains like its predecessor. The new operator, Branson Duck Tours, says the updated design is the only Coast Guard-approved vessel that has proved to be unsinkable. Sadly, the new duck boat design will offer very little reassurance to the families of the 17 people who lost their lives on Table Rock Lake in 2018. Watch this episode next if you found this video interesting. Please add a like and leave a comment if you want to support the channel.